Hi there, and welcome back to another book club episode of the Weirdly Wired Women podcast. I am super excited about this one. It is not a book that anybody has read yet, although if you're listening to this later, maybe you have. And I'm super excited about this because it was written by my friend and mentor, and I have watched her do all of the things and hear about all of the things, and I'm just so excited to share this with you. So I'm just going to start by introducing Angie. Why don't you just say hi?
Hi, I'm so happy to be on the show.
Yes. So Angie is just a plethora of things. Her podcast, though, is Permission to Kick Ass. And I highly, highly, highly recommend it. If you've ever thought about starting a business or you're just starting a business, it's amazing. And her book, which is coming out, what's the date exactly?
December 1st, although thanks to a publishing snafu, we're getting it a little bit early on November 27th. Happy early birthday
Ooh,
to me.
yay. And that book is also titled Permission to Kick Ass.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Uh,
what was your inspiration to write that?
it's the book that I really wish that I had when I first started my creative business. And I've been talking about this more lately because I have a whole lot of head trash and self-judgment. And I actually wrote a post on LinkedIn about that, about when I remember the head trash kicking in. Because I used to do like door-to-door sales and make keychains for my peers in school. And like I always had an entrepreneurial spirit, but at some point I got that, fall into line. You're not going to get a job if you behave this way. So it's been a lot of unpacking and deprogramming. And that relates to the book because I went to school. I got 3 degrees, including a master's degree. I actually have a business degree. And yet, when I started my first freelance business, I failed miserably. I have a business degree and I failed at business. What? Some of us are context learners, is what I've come to understand. And I held myself back for so long with that self-judgment and the shame around I should know better, I should do better. First of all, stop shitting on yourself. I'm
Right?
saying that just as much to me as to everybody
Yeah,
listening.
I remind myself of
But
that all the time.
yeah, um, and it's just everything that I wish I had known, like I said, because I went into this thinking of everything like an employee. And that is what led directly to me failing. I didn't know what I wanted out of my business. I didn't know who I wanted to work with. And some of these things you can only learn when you jump in. But, and then I had a lot of head trash to unpack and a lot of self-worth issues and let people push me around and get more work out of me than I wanted to give for the price that I was charging. So it's kind of a deep dive into all of the strategies that I used to talk myself into leaving the job, to starting my first business, to growing from there, and everything I've learned along the way.
Well, I can say that as someone who got to read the book in advance, that it is actually the book that I would have loved to have when I started.
Thank
I mean,
you.
it's so, what I really like about it, as opposed to a lot of books, is that you've got so many just actionable, practical steps in there. It's not like, oh, just think about what you want to do and like
Hmm.
you really go into what that means and what it looks like and how to think about money. And then you also have a companion workbook that people can
Yes.
get, which that link will be on your website soon. But
Yes.
the companion workbook, even, I mean, it definitely goes with the book, but I was just reading the exercises in that and I was like, I wish I just even had this workbook,
Hmm.
honestly. Like just to put things in order. And one of the things that I particularly appreciate is that you leave everything so open to be adaptable for where people
Yes.
are and what their lives look like. And that, and you acknowledge things like one of the things I was just reviewing today was, um, you don't need a website and business cards to get started. But
Hmm.
if thinking you need them and not being able to start because you don't have them, just get them. Like it's
Yes.
okay. You don't need them, but that doesn't mean if it's stressing you out and you can't start because you don't have them, then just get them so you can start.
Yeah. Do
And
a quick and dirty version and tell yourself this is just what I'm doing to get
right,
into action, and I will update it later. Because like the story I told this one in the book was that, right, you're always going to spend when you are building a business, but you have to decide whether you want to spend time or money and which
mm-hmm,
one is more expensive for you right
right,
now. This is why you see a lot of people in later stages of business going, "Oh, I can just hire that out, or I'm just going to bring that in, or I'm going to invest in a
mm-hmm,
new software." Because to them, time is more expensive. They don't have enough of it to be able to
right,
spend on this. But when you're just starting and you don't have money and you have time, you're going to spend time on things like me building my own website when I am the most clueless tech inept person out there, if it is super intuitive, I will still find a way to break it. I don't know what I thought I was doing by building a website. I think I spent probably the better part of 2 years trying to perfect this thing. How much money do you think I could have saved and time and aggravation if I had at some point in those 2 years just decided to hand that off to somebody
Right.
else? And I was so ashamed when I got that website live because it's janky looking and homemade, and I don't even know now that I finally got the messaging where I want, I don't know if I wanna work on that anymore, just, like, so many feelings around that. I didn't share my website with anybody. I'm sure they Googled me, I'm sure
Mhm.
that they saw it, and they still hired me with my janky website anyway, so why did I waste so much time
Right.
agonizing over this?
Yeah, I think it's just a thing where we think that we have to have everything into place before we can start, and that's just one of the things that I've loved about working with you, because you practice what you preach, and you show, yeah, sometimes I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just going to do it anyway, and I'll figure it
Mhm.
out, and that's okay.
Yes.
Um, so, but one of the things I specifically wanted to talk about is because this you've written about this, that this has been a labor of love for you, and it's been about 5 years in the making, and I
Yes.
know that sometime within that 5 years you learned that you had ADHD,
Yes.
and so I'm just wondering if did anything change based on that with your writing? Did it maybe just help you focus more? Like, did it just kind of give you some sort of reflection of, oh, maybe that explains some of why these
Oh,
things happened? And
it's it's definitely added a lot of context. So we're recording this in November of 2023. I got my diagnosis in about June of 2022, so about a year and a half ago now. And I don't know. I had this weird stigma in my head, this weird judgment. And also I attribute some of it to like dare culture from the 90s and every drug is a gateway drug. We're not going to medicate this because you're going to wind up homeless under a bridge addicted
mhm,
to crack, right? There was a lot of ridiculous stories I told myself about this. But what happened was just this interesting confluence of getting to visit with my best friend. I was a digital nomad. I was in Southern California. They came down to visit me and we were going to Disney World. And I was telling, or Disneyland, I was telling them how my tools weren't working. And by that, I mean like every ADHD person has their set of
right,
tools, their coping tools, their ways to actually flip into action when they just don't give a damn with this project they're working on. And I was like, my tools aren't working. And not only that, I'm having this thought that scares me every time I'm trying to focus on something like my book or these projects that really matter to me, this quiet, unemotional voice sneaks in and says, this would be easier if I wasn't here. And I don't want anybody to worry about me because that's not a thought that I personally feel compelled to act on, although I know that some people
mhm,
do. But just the fact that it just would sneak in there super calmly and be like, if I weren't here, this would be easier. Like, why should I be struggling like this? So my best friend and I were talking. I shared this and they said, Angie, like, please just talk to somebody. And when I heard their story, my friend's name is Alex, how they got diagnosed, how they responded to the medication, it was like they were saying everything that I was saying to myself in my head. And I actually said that to Alex, like, please get out of my head. You're
mhm,
saying all of the things that I think to myself. So, long story short, I sought out the diagnosis. I was really, really skeptical about going on Adderall, so I requested the lowest dose that they could, the extended release. Um, and I remember the first time I took the meds, it felt like being in a super noisy cafe and somebody turned down the volume of the cafe so that I could hear the conversation I was having with myself. And I was like, "Oh, wow, that's really interesting." And then Alex asked me later in the day, "So, hey, day one of meds, how did that go for you?" And I said, "It was astonishing. I knew I needed to go get cat food, and so I grabbed my keys and my wallet and I left and I went to go get cat food." And Alex is like, "That's really interesting. Sounds like there's more to that. Unpack it for me." Open. It's like ordinarily that would have been, I need to get cat food, but I also need to stop here, 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 and here. So like let's map out the optimal route and then let's make lists for each of these
right,
places and make sure that I don't forget anything. And oh, that's probably going to take several hours. So now we need to find a place for lunch. And now that's going to adjust the map that I had set for myself. And by 2 hours into this optimal planning process, the secondary voice kicks in. Get up, go to the store. You're
Mhm.
such a freaking loser. Why are you doing all this? And after like 4 hours where I've finally come up with the perfect plan, I don't want to go to the store and get cat food because now I'm too tired. I've used all
Right.
this energy creating the plan. And so I was telling Alex, yeah, that was a stunner. I've never experienced that in my life. I need cat food. Okay, cool. I'm going to run to the store real quick. Walk out the front door of the store and go, hey, there's a burger joint. I'll stop there for lunch. Cool. Like I was suddenly able to make decisions without attaching to like I have to find the perfect route for this,
Right.
otherwise it's not worth it. Now I say all of that to say this, which is we all know about the Adderall shortage and the
Mhm.
medication challenges. I faced extra special difficulties because of my lifestyle choices. Turns out requesting a schedule whatever controlled substance from different pharmacies because you live on the road makes people think that you are drug seeking, even
Mhm.
though I literally still have a surplus stash from November of last year, which is the last time I was able to get prescription fills. So it's just something that now that I know that there are meds out there, I've kind of just been using mine sparingly on days when I really, really need them and going back to my tools and checking in with my people on days when all of my tools aren't working. But all of this ties into the initial question that you asked because, um, wow, I just lost that train of thought. ADHD, it's
Yes,
fantastic.
it's
I was circling around so
yeah,
nicely
I was like,
too.
wow, you even remembered to come back. That's amazing.
Oh man, that was great.
We were
Just
talking
keeping things
originally,
working. Yeah.
yeah, about
Go ahead.
how your diagnosis, if that when you were writing the
Oh,
book, if that kind of
yeah. I think, you know, when you don't know what's happening and you're judging yourself for the way that your brain works, it's easy to get to that point that I was at before I sought my diagnosis, where it feels hopeless and you feel broken and you feel messed up. So if anything, this journey has taught me that like here we go, I'm back on track. That there's a reason why my brain works the way it does. And it's given me some insight to function as more of an observer instead of a judger of
Mhm.
myself. Like I've noticed something recently in the last couple months that if I have a super productive day, whether medicated or not, and I get up and I knock things off my to-do list and I work for a solid 8 hours and I'm feeling good, the next day is probably going to be a wash. I'm
Mhm.
probably going to do one or two things because doing that back to back to back is super challenging for
Right.
me now. And I have resolved to not go back to my old ways of tripping into adrenaline to
Mhm.
get shit done just because I need to get shit done. Like, I'm not
Right.
going to do that.
Right. And yeah, I found that freeing as well. Almost, but so then it kind of counterintuitively, because I function so much on like anxiety and meeting standards that I had in my head for um that I was burning myself out, but I was producing more just
Hmm.
all the time, and I was just a giant stress ball. That now I trying to accept that you know that was not healthy, and it's
Yes.
okay to have those days and not feel lazy about them. It's been um yeah, I mean, there's still I'm glad because I can look at it and be like, okay, that was not sustainable. And
Yes.
it's not a moral failing on my part. I'm not lazy. I'm just, my brain works this way. Um, but still letting go of all of that stuff that you
Hmm.
grew up with and the
Well, and then
um
like that's another like superpower slash, double-edged sword, right? The fact that we can hyperfixate and get things done. I used to joke about the fact that when I was in corporate, I could get more done in 2 hours than people could get done in 10
mhm,
because I was that good. But also that same aspect of your brain that allows you to really get shit done focuses on all of your perceived shortcomings to the
right.
point that you can't see what you've done. Like I worked with a life coach by the name of Brian McCarthy for a couple of years, and I would have low energy days like that where I was like, I had it was a day off and I had these plans for all of these things that I wanted to get done and I didn't get it done and I'm such a freaking loser. And he would help me unpack that. Like I remember one day I'm laying on the couch in Vegas and I'm going through this and I'm beating myself up. And he goes, "Okay, cool. Walk me through your day. Tell me what happens and we'll decide whether you were productive or not." And it turns out that I had done a whole lot of work on my business, But for whatever reason, there was a disconnect between that part of my brain that acknowledges and celebrates it because it doesn't look like what I wanted it to look
Right.
like. It just wasn't entering my consciousness that I did it. So we learned a couple of things that like I have to be more deliberate about giving myself credit for the work that I did do. And also for me, like this is one of my coping skills unmedicated, is I need a low energy day plan. On those days when I can't get anything done and my brain is not going to cooperate, here are the tools that I'm going to try, and here is the minimum I'm going to aim for. And if I use the tools and I achieve the minimum, today is a successful day. Even if I didn't get up here,
Right.
like getting down here is a win. So that's been an undoing.
Well, and one of Meredith, who was on the podcast a few episodes ago, Meredith Carter, she mentioned in one of the conversations we were having that what we also forget about those super high focus days is not only are we getting so much done, but we're also probably forgetting to eat. We're definitely not
Yep.
eating well. We've probably not had enough water. We
Mm-hmm.
maybe like, so we aren't even taking care of our body. So it's not just our brain, like our whole body has to recover from that. And we
Yes.
forget those things because we're like, but I did it yesterday. Well, yeah. How many days can you go without eating, sleeping, and peeing? You really can't do that many. Like that's bad.
Yeah. I was talking to a psychologist yesterday, and she was curious about that. I think she suspected and is curious about seeking out a diagnosis. Um, and she was asking me about things like that, and I had to break down to her that she asked me specifically, could you do something like Tiny Habits? I can't remember who the author is off the top of my head, but Tiny Habits to help
Mhm.
you with some of these things that you forget. And I said, no, because, and this is, I'm not going to say that every ADHD brain works like mine, but mine is one that really doesn't develop habits. I have to consciously think about
Mhm.
everything I need to
Right.
do every single day. And the challenge with the way my brain works is I will literally blow out every single detail to the point where I'm over analyzing a shower.
Mhm.
And oh my God, well, you and I both have vivid hair. That
Yes.
takes a little bit of extra maintenance. Am I in the mood for a cold shower today so that I don't wash out the red? Or am I willing to wash out the red? Or do I want to put on gloves and put some red in my conditioner? Like,
Mhm.
this is every single step of that shower. I'm asking myself these questions and it's freaking exhausting. So I'm like, yeah, sometimes I get to the end of the day and realize I haven't eaten since this morning. That happened to me just this weekend. And this is why I focus on having really awesome people like you and my best friend, to where when I'm having a day, I know I'm telling myself stories that aren't helping me, I can reach out for help. So, like Sunday, I sent a message to my best friend and was like, I'm having a day. I'm working on this book. I've had some issues with the publisher. I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like everybody's going to hate this. Everybody hates me. Like,
Mhm. The
I just
spiral.
needed to vent. Yeah, the spiral. Later on, I had some dinner, and it wasn't until I smelled it that my stomach was growling, and I was like, "Oh, right, I haven't eaten since this morning." I had the first couple of bites of dinner, and I could literally feel like whatever chemical dump happened in my
Mhm.
system to calm me down. And I circled back to my best friend and was like, "Oh, right, remember that meme about if you think everybody hates you, you should probably eat something, and if you think you hate everybody, you should probably take a nap."
Mhm.
That's what happens. I
Yeah.
hadn't eaten all day, so I was convinced everybody hated me, but I've eaten, and I don't
Yeah.
believe that anymore now.
Yeah. I mean, it happens to me more regularly. And now we're trying my son on some medication, and, that's been a roller coaster, but also getting him, I can forget to eat and then remember I need to eat and force myself to eat. And I don't have to love everything I eat. And even that's pain
Mhm.
because I grab crappy snacks. But I mean, he's a little kid. If he doesn't want to eat something, he's not going to eat it. And I'm like, but you need to
Yeah.
have food. So, but yeah, you can't, if you don't have fuel, the,
Mhm.
the car won't go.
Yes. That's the exact way to think about this too, that I always tell people, like, if the engine is idling, it's still consuming fuel.
Right.
So, like, if you're doom scrolling, if you're organizing to-do lists in your head, even if you're just sitting on the couch kind of staring off into space, everybody thinks that you're not doing something, but that motor is just churning and burning your fuel. And that just adds to the struggle because if we've forgotten to eat, we've forgotten to fuel up. Well, then you're going to hit the wall and be like, well, I'm not going to do anything and I feel like shit.
Hmm. And I'm terrible.
And I'm a terrible person and everybody hates me.
Hmm. Yep.
Side rant related to that. I mentioned
I
this.
love
I
side
was at
rants.
side
Rants.
rants, side quest. Let's
Yes.
do it. I was at an event last October, so a little over a year ago now, and I happened to be sitting on the front porch with several friends, and I was talking about this diagnosis and with my trouble with getting meds. And somebody asked me about what led me to get the diagnosis and to seek treatment. And I talked about that quiet voice that snuck in and said it would be easier
Mhm.
if I wasn't here. One of my friends started crying and immediately jumped up and hugged me and said, "But I want you here." So that was the thought that just popped into my head related to all of this. Like, if you have a friend that just pops into your head and you smile and have a
Mhm.
memory, also try to remember to reach out to them and say, "Hey, I had this memory of you the other day and it made me smile and I wanted to
Mhm.
say hi." That's a practice that I've been working on lately. Like, "Hey, you popped into my head and I just wanted to let you know I'm thinking of you," because I didn't know how much I needed to hear that until she got up and gave me that hug that, yes, I want you here. And not like I planned on going. Like I said, I didn't plan to act on that, but it does a soul good to
Yeah.
hear that you're wanted, you know?
Yeah, or just to I mean, just reaching out with those kind words when you think of them. Like, you never know what kind of day someone's
Yes.
having, and it can make all of the difference. It's kind of why I
Mhm.
overtip. Because
Yeah.
I used to be a server and it sucked. But also, like, I mean, even if someone is having like, maybe if the service isn't great, it's because the person is having a bad day.
Yes.
Maybe because everybody else has stiffed them. Who knows? But I'm like, you know what?
Yes. Well, and the
If I
service
can make
industry
someone's
has
day a little bit brighter,
got oh, yeah.
yay.
And the service industry has gotten so much harder since I
Right,
was a server too, with all of the entitled people and being filmed without your permission for
right.
content and all kinds of things. So yeah, I'm kind everywhere I go. I was on an airplane not too long ago and it was like early morning. I can't even remember what brought it up, but I think there were two people that were confused over the seat, but they wound up resolving it amicably and figuring out who was in what seat. And I kind of joked to the attendant who was standing in the seat aisle across from me while the plane loaded. I was like, "Good, because if it came to blows, I was going to be like, sit down." She was like, "Just the fact that you would like stand up and help us out means the world to me." And she brought me extra cookies.
Oh, see? I mean, you don't have to be kind for like, but karma, you know what? It comes
Yeah,
around.
I didn't do it for the extra cookies. I
Yes,
did it because
but
I was feeling feisty, but
right.
being nice, you never know exactly what kind of day
Yeah. And
somebody's
or
having.
just, yeah, empathizing with someone's situation because, you know, they
Hmm.
couldn't probably act the way you know, they'd have to be like the professional and
Yeah, they couldn't follow the intrusive thoughts all the way down the rabbit hole.
yeah. What's that like? Um, so
I wouldn't know.
yeah. Circling back to the book,
Okay.
um, one of again, I whether you I think this probably just happened naturally because you had to figure things out with the brain that you had and you didn't realize it was ADHD, but a lot of the things that you've cultivated and your skills, they're all based on things you were struggling with, largely because of ADHD. Um,
Yep.
and so I think that's clear in how you have all the adaptable stuff. Sorry. Because I was thinking about that too, because you and I both have ADHD. Um, and we've worked, you know, together in coaching relationships and in like just conferences and various things. But so even though we both have it, we have different challenges. Like,
Yes.
what is going to work for you isn't necessarily going to work for me, even though we have ADHD. And I think that that also comes through just in the way you talk about how to adapt it. And um, I don't know if it's um, part ADHD. I think it comes with that. I think that comes with a little bit of screw the rules. Um,
Hmm.
I'm going to do it my way. This, especially if I think the other way is stupid. But just that realization that you can create solutions that work for you. Um, but that also it's important not to get too spooled up in all of the things because running a business there's a lot of parts. Like,
Hmm.
and the
Yeah.
more you learn about it, the more parts you are. And then if you start thinking about too much about all the parts, you're like, I'm never going to do this. So I think you do a wonderful job of breaking it down with your lemonade
Oh, thank
stand
you.
analogy. Can you talk about that real
Yeah,
quick?
sure. I mean, you heard me talk about how complicated
Right,
I can make a freaking shower.
right.
Talk about getting shut down in business before you get started. And I think I had a real visceral reaction to being told what to do by people who didn't really understand me or how my brain worked or how my goals. It was just something that worked for them. So it should be easy for
Mhm.
me too, right? Like
Right.
I call myself an anti-prescriptive coach because I don't know what's right for you. And that comes from my days volunteering on a domestic crisis hotline, where part of our training, like we did this intense 2-day training to kind of put ourselves into that mode to really understand with compassion what the other person on the other end of the line was likely going through. Um, the decision that I make through my particular filter may not only not work for you, it might actually put you in danger or set you back if I don't know all of the factors that could be, affecting or impacting this decision I'm encouraging you to make. So that's why I'm a really big believer in, okay, there's 100 different ways that you could do this. Let's narrow it down to the one that feels best for you. Let's go instinctively. Let's not overthink this. Let's make this as simple as possible. Let's look at all the things that we've got going for us instead of the things that we've got going against us. And then let's treat it all like an experiment and see what happens instead of going, oh my God, I need this to work or I'm a failure.
Mhm.
Right. And through following those steps, just kind of over and over and over again, what do I want to do? What's the simplest way to get this done? Let's see what happens. What did I learn from that? That's how you can iterate your way forward and find a way that works for you. Just like you said, that way is stupid and it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Cool. There's 1,000 different ways. There's more than 1,000 different ways to build a business, and you get to build one that works for you.
Exactly.
But that also means that you can't give me your power by going, just tell me what to do. That's abdicating your own responsibility in your life, and I'm not for that. So the way that I broke it down, like you mentioned the lemonade stand model that I teach in the book, um, I see everything in 4 simple steps. And obviously there's a little bit more to this, but if you break business down to its most fundamental parts. You need something to sell, people who want to buy that thing, a way for them to get in touch with you, and a way to take money. And I know that that sounds overly simplistic, but think about going to a weekend flea market or somebody's yard sale that you happen to drive by. There's something to sell, right? All the stuff that you
Mhm.
have on your lawn or your table, people who want to buy it, the people that stop by, a way to take money. Cash counts as taking money. PayPal counts as taking money. You don't necessarily need to set up a complicated merchant account, a Stripe, or anything like that. You could take PayPal, right? That's fine. You could take a check if you want to. It's up to you. And a way for people to get in touch with you. There's a reason that I use the flea market or the yard sale analogy, because there are people that do serious business by going and buying cheap stuff at a flea market or a yard sale and then reselling it. And then they just rinse and repeat, right? People walk up to them and say hi, or they get their phone number or they follow their emails. All of these things can be really simple if you let them be. And that's what I like to encourage, especially those of us with our weirdly wired brains, right?
Right.
Try to eliminate all of the extra steps. You don't necessarily need to start with a complicated Facebook ad campaign and opt-in and like all of these upsells in the funnel. You don't need to start with the full funnel. Start with who you know and make offers to them and see what happens.
Yeah. You don't even need to know what a funnel is to start.
Yep.
You just, I mean, that's exactly it. Like, I think we we do tend to overcomplicate things, sometimes because we just think it's supposed to be complicated, and so it can't be
Yes.
simple. And then I think some of that is obviously fear, because if
Mm-hmm.
we have to figure out a bunch of stuff, we can be busy figuring out stuff, and we're doing stuff, but we're not really doing stuff.
Yes. We're spinning our wheels. That happened to me actually really recently. Um, Earlier this year, I had a situation that I'm not really going to go into, but it made me rethink whether or not I was interested in my background expertise, which is marketing and copywriting. I've been that for 13 years, and I was thinking, okay, cool. The book is coming out. Maybe this is the ideal time to pivot. I like talking about leadership and communications and helping people solve interpersonal issues and like feel like leaders and increase their confidence. So I'm going to burn down the marketing side of what I do. I'm going to walk away from that completely and I'm going to build this leadership and communications presence. But I couldn't walk away from marketing because that's where I was making my money.
Mm-hmm.
So I wound up going to this, just on a fluke. I got invited to a conference called the Badass Business Summit, and I was like, say less, I'm in.
Yes.
Badass business. Pff, yeah, I'm in. And I go there, and on the second day, I had an opportunity to meet with the leader of that conference, a man by the name of Donnie. He's super smart. And he's the only one that when I said, this is what I'm doing, I'm moving from copy into leadership, goes, why? What's making you do that? And he just kept hammering me with questions and not giving me time to like think and come up with excuses. I was just having to react on instinct and answer these questions. And I get pretty teary-eyed by the end, and he was like, it doesn't sound like you're done with writing. Like, what would you do if money wasn't an object? And I was like, I would be a writer. I would turn permission to kick ass into its own brand. I would have like permission to kick ass at money and permission to kick ass at relationships and like all kinds of different books. I would just make this into my thing and tell the stories and meet the people and encourage them. And he goes, okay, so why are you switching into leadership? Why are you leaving all of that behind? You should be where you want to be, not where you think you should be. And I was like, I was still really resistant to it. And he said, let me put it another way. Why are you doing any of this at all? Why are you writing a book? Why do you have a podcast? And I got a little bit teary eyed because I think we all have somebody in our past that's probably criticized the way we do
Oh,
things or told
yes.
us we weren't good enough, right?
Uh-huh. Or
So
many
like here
someone's.
I am. Oh yes, on the verge of snot bubble tears at this conference where I know no one, by the way. Like I'm a stranger to this conference and I'm in tears and I just go because I don't want a single other creative person to go to their grave thinking that they're not good enough and that they can't figure this out. And I'm I'm getting a little teary saying that just now. But it's funny how the instinct is, I don't like this thing. This struggle has become uncomfortable to me. The next evolution of myself as a marketer, as a business
Mhm,
coach, burn it all down and build something new because that makes me feel good. It's new, it's interesting,
mhm.
exciting. I'm building things. Nah, maybe I could just build on what I've already been building for the last 13 years. That's not a judgment, too, if you feel the need to burn it all down and build something new. You got to do what you got to do to process. But also, I hope that you're surrounding yourself with people like Donnie who care enough to show you what they're seeing and give you something to think about instead of going, cool, I'll help you burn it down. Here's the gasoline.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why it's so important to have a network and different opinions and just different people who can bounce because everybody's experience is different too. And
Mm-hmm.
so they might see something just completely differently than you do. And it's funny when you were talking about him asking you why, I was like, oh, he copywritered you. Because that's like the
Yes.
thing where you're like, just keep asking why until the person starts
Yes.
crying, basically.
Yes. And when they have some sort of powerful emotional reaction
Yes.
where they either start laughing hysterically or crying hysterically, you know you've hit some gold.
Yes. When the snot bubbles happen,
Yeah,
good stuff.
it's good material. It's good material. Oh gosh. Wow. This book has
So,
definitely brought up a lot of emotions and unprocessed shit for me. And I have joked a couple of times that like maybe the second book is tentatively tentatively titled A Series of Unfortunate Decisions, and it'll be about the business decisions that I've made over the last 2 years that led to a struggle place and how to crawl out of that and how this is going to be business for the rest of your
right.
life. Making the best decision that you can in the moment and dealing with the consequences for better or for worse after you've made those decisions. And that's how you learn how to trust yourself and follow your instincts and make better decisions.
Right. And also, I think that is all obviously very important. And some of the things that I think about though is like, again, we tend to focus on the negatives so much.
Yes.
Like the failures and we don't celebrate the wins, but I think we also just forget to celebrate sometimes the fun of like,
Yeah.
and I'm just as guilty of this as anybody, and mostly because I think people are hesitant to get into business because they have fears. They're not, but so you talk about the head trash and how to get past the head trash, but it's very rare that I'm like, you know what? I had an awesome day today.
Mm-hmm.
I had, I had the free time to go to meet this new person for coffee and we had a great conversation. And then I did this and then I did that. Because, and maybe we don't share that because we're like, well, we don't want to paint this artificial picture because people already think that being an entrepreneur is just sitting around eating bonbons all day.
Mm-hmm.
And, but
It's probably part that and probably part capitalism because we're weirdly attached to anything that brings money.
Mhm.
And like everything that doesn't pay us is somehow not as important as closing the sale. And I really like that you pointed that out. Me going out and having coffee with somebody in my local business community is a win. That's the start of a relationship. Relationships are what make business run.
Mhm.
That's how, like, oh my gosh, I'm really struggling and I need an accountant to help. And Kristen goes, I just met with a really badass accountant the other day. We had coffee. Let me connect you to. That's literally how business gets done most of the time, not these stupid cold pitches on LinkedIn.
Right. Well, yeah. And in fact, in one of the groups I was in, someone was talking about like, because a lot of people have this, I'm not good at selling. And I thought that about myself too. But then when I start looking at it, I'm like, well, first of all, selling comes across as very, I think what's maybe a problem, maybe it's for women, maybe it's for just people who are not naturally salespeople, but it feels very one-sided. Like you're trying to convince
Yes.
someone that they need the thing. And
Hmm.
that's really not what you're trying to do. You're trying to find the people that need the thing and know they need the thing. And
Yes.
and you're just trying to say, I can help you with the thing. And maybe I'm not the person to help you with the thing, and that's okay, but I am good at this thing. And it's not
Hmm.
like, oh, so Angie, do you want to buy this camera? Well,
Yeah.
no, I don't need a
Here are all
camera.
the reasons that you should want to.
Right. Yeah. Like now granted with ADHD, like you can wave enough shiny stuff. And I'm like, yes, I do need that camera. But
Mhm.
but yeah, it's not trying to convince people to buy something that they don't need or even that they're not ready for but could use. It's forming relationships and then they'll happen. And
Yeah. And like, again, just cultivating that skill set of clearing away all of the cobwebs. Like, if you need to make the plan to feel comfortable and to get into action, then make the plan. Make the 3-page list of all the things that need to go according to plan. And then take a break, right? Do something that gets your
mhm,
energy back up, take a nap, whatever. And then come back to this and ask, what's V1 of this? What is the
right.
simplest possible version of this that I could get done? I had a revelation with sales recently. And it's related to simplicity because in my mind, I'm a builder like that. I always go for the
Right.
complicated thing, and I know how all the funnel pieces connect together. And I need to come up with the perfect offer stack and the ascension
Right.
model and stuff like that before I've even proven any of these offers, by the way.
Right.
Just some like just a little note to take with you. Sometimes the easiest sale that you can make is just proving the idea that you have. And so I've long had this idea in my head, and I'm the kind of person that needs to mull over something
Right.
for a
Me
while and
too.
kind of turn over. It's kind of like stones tumbling. I
Right.
just need it to tumble for a while until it comes out polished. I loved from my email marketing background brainstorming. That was the perfect thing to me to get in a room with people and go, here's what we need to accomplish. Here are all of the crazy, fun, serious, inspirational, whatever ideas that we have to stand out and get people's attention. Let's figure out the plan for this, figure out which of those stories are go forward and do
Mhm.
that. And when I was the copy chief slash creative director slash account manager, I wore a lot of hats,
Yeah, we all
ADHD,
do.
um, for my friend's agency. I developed this system and I got really, really good at it. We could plan out somebody's entire email schedule for a month, sometimes even more, in one 60-minute phone call per month. And not only would we plan out that email marketing schedule, we'd have a lot of fun telling stories. I'd get them to tell me the entire story, and then we could easily translate those transcripts into emails. And so I just kept telling my friends, and this has probably been a year in the making, I don't know how to sell a brainstorm, but I know that people get a lot of value out of this process because I've seen it happen. I've
Mhm.
worked with dozens of people on this. And when we get done with a brainstorm meeting, every single person goes, oh my God, that was amazing. And I'm so excited for these emails to come out. How do I build that into something? So fast forward to a couple weeks ago, I was in Dallas with my book coach, Kathleen. Shout out to Kathleen. And I'm floating this idea by her and a couple of other business owners. And like, I don't know how to sell it. And she goes, well, you just did. You said it was like marketing emails in an hour. And I was like, oh shit, did I say that? And so I came home and I wrote up like a 2-page Google Doc about this is what it is. This is how I think it'll work. This is who it's for. This is what it will help you get done and why you need it. Um, and wouldn't you know it, that within 24 hours of me deciding that I'm going to put this together, I'm going to write it down and I'm going to see if it's something that people want. Two separate people reached out to me and they were like, I'm looking for help with marketing emails. And I was able to say, well, I've been working on a new offer. Take a look at this and tell me if it's something that you'd be interested in. If you're not, I'm happy to connect you with a copywriter or maybe talk strategy session or like figure out what I can help you with. And both of those people read that Google document and said, I'm in, sign me up. I didn't have to come up with the like, here's what to expect next and the perfect onboarding sequence. I
Hmm.
was literally able to send them a PayPal link invoice with the terms of like, this is what we're agreeing to, this is how it's going to go. Then I got with them and said, hey, what's the schedule look like? Let's go ahead and set up these meetings for these days. Send out the calendar invite. Easiest sales I have ever made of my life. And we're not talking about something that costs $20. It costs
Right.
significantly more than that for this. And these people see the value of it. And I just had my first call right
Yay.
before you and I hopped on this, and it went really, really great. Like he was feeling super low energy. And then by the time we were done with that, he was like, oh, great. I've got my email plan for December. I'm super excited. It feels like the right stories. And I was like, see, instinct, making it simple, not getting too in your head, but also following your own process. Cause it took me the better part of a year to figure out what that looked like and figure out how to position it to people.
Right. And so many things that I thought of with that
Mhm.
story, which is
Go
great.
for it.
First was like, I'm glad you figured it out, because immediately my brain starts going, oh, how would you do that? And
Yeah.
that made me think about like, um, this kind of ties into the belief of like scarcity or like competition, um, because, we're both coaches. So
Yeah.
theoretically, we compete. Um,
Hmm.
Although I read your book and I was like, I guess I don't really even need to do this anymore. I could just hand everybody Angie's book.
Oh no.
No, no, no.
First of all, I can't work with 8 billion people and neither can you. So there's
Well, that's
plenty
true. And well, and
for
that's
all of us.
exactly it. Like, even when you're like someone, or I love the way this coach does that. First of all, you can't serve everybody.
Yeah.
And not everybody's going to click with everybody else. But, and most like, I, maybe it's just because I happen to work, like, have found really great entrepreneurs, but nobody is acting like there's this huge competition.
Mm.
Like, in fact, the thing that, and I've noticed this, and I've been meaning to write about it, the question that I hear the most and ask the most and love the most is, what can I do to help? Because you
Yeah.
hear somebody is doing something and you're like, oh, great. Can I help? Can I make a
Yep.
connection? Can I, I have this resource I could share, or exactly like you
Hmm.
said, oh, I'm looking for an accountant, or I'm struggling with this thing. And like, I haven't met a single person. And I talked to a lot of coaches who are theoretically would be competing,
Hmm.
but we all have different strengths. We all have different offers. We all have different everything.
Yeah.
And we're all happy to be just like, oh, so who is the perfect person you want to work with? Because if I
Hmm.
know anybody, I'll send them your way. Or because I mostly work with neurodiverse women now, and not
Yeah.
everybody does that. And so when I say that, someone who coaches like for normal
Mm.
um women, it's like, well, I can send them.
Neurotypical.
Yeah, which I'm starting to think is like not even a thing. Um,
Yeah.
we're all weird, but like, yeah, it's like there's so much generosity out there in the small entrepreneur space that
Hmm.
I think it's like sometimes it's a little overwhelming. Like, you're like, when I first came into it, I'm like, what's the catch here? Like, why is
Hmm.
everybody so nice? Um, but it's just this genuine kindness and acknowledgement that there
Yeah.
is enough for everybody.
Yes.
Um and not everybody's idea of success is the same. Like, you know
Hmm.
someone might want a full book of bajillions of clients and a long wait list, and maybe can't wait to scale into like some big thing. And some people are like, yeah, I want to work like 20 hours a week, and as long as I'm making enough money, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want. And there's no,
Yeah.
just like there's no rules, there's no right result. It's like, is this the result you want? And is it really the result you want? Or is the result you think you want because someone told you want it? And
Yes.
that is a
That
lot of the
is the
unpacking.
question.
Yeah.
That is the question. Do you actually want this or do you want this because you think it's what you should want?
Hmm.
That's something that I rail against a lot because we see it a lot in entrepreneurial spaces. Like, I'll help you get to $10,000 a month. I'll help you get
Hmm.
to $100,000. Like, the numbers that we attach to, and I understand it from a marketing perspective. And also, that's not for everybody. Like, I was
Right.
just talking to somebody on a different meeting yesterday about there are people out there who they freelance just enough to be able to move to, like, there are websites that let you volunteer part-time for in exchange for room and board. So you could go like work for a couple of hours on a plantation in Hawaii and then spend the rest of your day surfing or uh, hiking or doing whatever you want to do, and then spend a couple of hours working on projects for people, and that works for you
Right.
without having to make a million bajillion dollars or be the next coming of Amy Porterfield or Marie Forleo or
Right.
whatever. Um, do you know what you even want out of this? Because I had a big reality check with again, Brian challenged me on this. I was having another meltdown one day about I just don't feel like I'm getting close to my goals. And I wanted to build, I do want to build $1 million business, but mostly because I come from a blue collar background and I just want to prove to
Hmm.
myself it's possible.
Right.
Um, that's more a me goal than a society goal. And he goes, okay, cool, break that down. Why is that the goal? And I was like, I want to be able to travel, and I want to be able to treat people, and I want to enjoy fabulous food and experience weird adventures, and like be generous without having to worry about things. And he goes, okay, those are all great goals. Remind me, where are you now? And I was like, Southern California. Why? And he was like, and what did you just do? And I was like, I just got back from Disneyland with my best friends. And he was like, so, help me understand. So you are traveling, correct? Yes. Okay, cool. So you are having weird, awesome experiences with the people that you care about. Yes. Okay, cool. You're being able to treat and spoil the people that love and support you. Yes. Okay, cool. And you are failing
Mhm.
because why exactly? I lost sight of the reason why I'm doing this. And yes, I want to have a bigger impact and I want to create the $1 million business. But more than that, I want the result that the $1 million business will give me, which is this life of freedom, which I was already living.
Yes. Yeah, there's so many things. It's funny. I was talking with someone, uh, a coach yesterday that I had just met, and she was lovely, and we were just chatting about our experiences. And she mentioned um, working with some people who are like, "Oh, well, I want to do, once I've hit this mark, I want to be able to, take a nap every day, or take this kind of
Hmm.
walk, or do this kind of thing." And she's like,
Take the
"Well,
nap now.
yeah, well, you can do, or you can do a version of that now. Like, you don't, you know, schedule it into your calendar, take that walk. Like,
Yes.
you you can. I mean, some things, you like, if I said like I want to take a walk every day at 3 o'clock, well, that's not going to work because I have to leave to pick up my kid. But
Mhm.
like, but if I really want to take a walk every day, I can make that happen.
Yes.
And
And you can make Parkinson's law work for you, which is that the time the task will take is the time that you
yes.
allow it, the time that you give it. So if I tell myself I can't get up from this desk until the thing is done, well, then I'm probably going to be here all day. But
Hmm.
if I tell myself that I've got a lunch appointment that I need to leave for at noon, I'm probably going to get it done by noon so that I can
Hmm.
go enjoy my lunch appointment, because I don't want to go, well, that's the fun thing over there, but I can't go have fun.
Hmm.
No, give me the dopamine. I have an ADHD brain. I want to go have fun, so I'm going to get this thing done.
Yeah.
Yep. Super fun.
Well, I could
Oh,
actually talk to you for like a bajillion hours.
I know. I want to keep ranting for like 3 more hours.
I know. Well, you're always welcome back. And I
Yes.
actually am. I mentioned this to you once. I want to have like just like these book club episodes. I want to have like chaos conversations where it's just a bunch of
Yes.
ADHD women who get together and like, okay, we're talking about bears right now, and see where it ends up. Like an hour later,
Yes.
how did we get to
That's so many
nipples from bears? I
possibilities.
don't know.
Black bears,
Yeah.
gummy bears. What kind of bears? Oh my
Are we even
gosh.
talking about bears, or like bear bodies? Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah. Or stuffed animals. Oh my God. So many
Yes.
possibilities.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I told you before we started recording that even though we're friends, that I feel very fangirl about this. And I'm so excited for
Oh,
you that you got your book done and you met your goals. And I've been just thrilled to watch all of this and
oh,
get
thank
to be a
you.
part of it. So all of the links and everything will be in the show notes. But is there anything else you want to just share or shout out before we stop?
I do. because you were an early reader and you gave me a fantastic blurb that's actually on the back cover for anybody
Yes, I
that
made
gets
the
the book.
cover of a book.
She made the cover. Well, you said such like it was so pithy. Like you can stay small without having to play small. And I was like, yes, oh my
Mm.
gosh, that's fantastic. Um, the thing that I held back from the early release was the acknowledgement section, which you were also mentioned in.
Aw.
So I'm gonna have to send that over to you so that we can both have a little like moment.
Well, it was awesome having you, and you are absolutely welcome back whenever you want. And follow Angie because she is awesome and amazing. And you can find her at anything that says permission to kick ass. You'll find her.
Yeah,
Um,
that's me.
and well, I'm going to say goodbye right now, and I'm going to stop the podcast, but I am not going to actually end the thing because I do that sometimes. All right.